Welcome to another installment of our Encompass Thought Leadership Series, where we bring experts from our industry to share their knowledge and help your business grow. Today, our webinar is Trust to Revenue Marketing Approach, a communications industry framework for closing more deals. We're proud to welcome Laura Johns, CEO of our member company, The Business Growers. The Business Growers is headquartered in my home state of Mississippi and is a marketing firm specializing in helping MSPs, IT companies, and communication providers grow their revenue. Laura is recognized as an industry expert with 20 years of experience managing marketing for companies ranging from tech startups to global multi-billion businesses. She is author of Know, Grow, Scale, the digital marketing blueprint for growing your MSP or IT business. Last year, she was honored as a winner of the Gold Stevie Award in the Best Female Entrepreneur Small Business category, and she's been named the Top 50 Leading Women in Business and Top 50 Under 40 in Mississippi. Join me in welcoming Laura. We appreciate her taking this time to share her expertise.
Thank you so much, Chip. I am so excited to be a part of this and believe this is one of many valuable things that Encompass offers its members. So I'm really grateful to be able to share. We find great value in your events, the way that you engage with your members, and I'm really grateful to be here today. I'm going to jump right in because we do have a lot of content to cover, but if you have joined this webinar today, there's a good chance that you're trying to crack the code to figuring out how to get more deals closed. And so that's why we're all here today. If any of you are curious about who I am, you can read here. And of course, Chip introduced me, so I appreciate that. I am founder and CEO of the Business Growers. And for the last 20 years, I've helped telecommunications companies, ISPs, and MSPs grow. I've been in your seat before. If you work for one of those types of companies, I was a chief marketing officer in this industry, and everything I teach today has truly been battle tested by either me or my team. And my goal today is just to show you a framework of how your company can become the most trusted and most visible option in your space for buyers. So we're going to jump right in. If you find what we talk about today interesting, we do have a YouTube channel. I post on there. Right now I'm posting daily actually, but we have webinars, we have podcasts, other guests in the industry. So please feel free to give us a follow there. I know my marketing team would appreciate it. And also you can get some great value there. I know that everyone here is super busy, so let's make this hour count. If you can, I encourage you to shut out distractions, close out Outlook or email, take Teams to another screen or close it out, and just lean in like a student today. I really believe that there are probably some people on this call today that know everything I have to say already, but I also believe that maybe there's something that we all can learn. Typically, when I do webinars, we start engaging at the end of the call or throughout the call in the chat, and there are things that I can learn here for sure. So Grace on my team is on the call today. She's going to be helping me monitor the chat, but I will stop a couple of times throughout and make sure that I catch any questions that we have. But I just encourage you today to put your student cap on. If you are willing to do that, can you please type the word student in the chat today so that I know you're here. I know that I'm not just here talking to my screen, and that we are going to engage and shut out distractions today so that we can take something back to our companies that's meaningful. Awesome. Okay, so today, now that we've got some students in the room, we're going to start by affirming probably what you already know, which is how difficult it can be sometimes in this industry to get predictable lead flow for your sales team. So give me a 1 if you have found that challenging in your business today. 1 in the chat if you have found predictable lead flow for your sales teams. If you found that challenging, give me a 1. I want to see who's here to learn today. The good thing is that you're probably not the only one. If you did, just type a 1 in the chat, because we all struggle with that. And there's actually a great graphic I like to show from Microsoft that basically tells us in B2B, it takes about 13 to 17 touches minimum to convert a lead. And so you're not alone. It's not just hard for you. This is just the industry norm. I honestly think since COVID, it's gotten a little bit more difficult. But the truth is, and the good news is that if you're in sales or you support sales, today we're going to talk about why sales isn't solely responsible for this entire process. And you can kind of see a lot of times we give up halfway along the way because we really want to know who's bubbling up and ready to buy, right? So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. I showed this graphic, a little unconventional for a slideshow. I showed this graphic at Channel Partners a week or so ago, and actually served popcorn to the room. So I apologize for those of you who are not receiving popcorn at your desks or wherever you're sitting today. I couldn't figure out a way to get popcorn to you, but apologize for that. But I do think that this is a really good, memorable image to help make the foundation of what I'm here today to discuss a little bit more memorable, something you won't forget. A major misconception in our industry that honestly is really unpopular to talk about, especially to maybe a C-level executive, is that our entire population of buyers is not ready to buy right now. So statistically, of 100% of your total buying population, 3% of those buyers are ready to make a purchase at any given time, which means number one, our job is to be visible to them the other 97% of the time. And if you take this picture of popcorn and you think about, not that we ever stick a bowl of kernels into the microwave like this, but the goal here is to understand that our job is to warm them up until they're ready to buy, ready to pop, right? And you're not going to get 100% of these popcorn kernels all popping at the same time. And so that's really important, just to set the tone for how we are going to do marketing from a trust first. The title of this was a trust to revenue, a trust first mentality versus who's hot right now and ready to buy. That's important to know, of course, but it's really a mindset shift. And here's just a sample of your buyer's journey. More than likely, and I know that some of you, not all of you, are exclusively selling, commercially or B2B. I think that this also applies for residential, just with a few caveats. But for the most part today, understand we're going to be talking about business to business. I'm actually going to make sure I don't have anybody yet. If you do have a chat, anything you want to put in the chat, questions along the way, I didn't mention this, but feel free to throw them in the chat and then I'll stop to answer any questions. Okay. This is a quick picture of what our job is from a sales and marketing standpoint, right? Your future client or future customer is probably not sitting there thinking, I need a new fiber company today. They're probably thinking something along the lines of, why is our network so slow? We can't afford another security incident. Buyers typically do not engage when we want them to. They engage when they're ready to buy. And statistically, 70 to 74% of the time, that's after they've already done most of their research. And where are they doing their research? Online. So our job is to make sure that we are supplying them with the information that they need so that when they are ready to buy, that they remember our name, right? I'm going to go. Okay. So here is, just kind of a sample too of what's going on in their mind throughout their journey before they trust you with their infrastructure, before they trust you with a big purchase decision. They need to, one, recognize that their current setup is putting them at risk or understand that they need a change. They also need to understand the cost of doing nothing. They need to see evidence that you've solved similar problems for other people like them. And they also need to believe that you understand their specific industry challenge. So this is the thought process of your buyer. And I want you to kind of think about your company. And I like to show this. I call it the $250,000 problem. I don't know what the number is for you. There's probably some back of napkin math that you could do. but I want you to think about how many deals have slipped away, not because your product wasn't good, but because you disappeared in the middle of the buyer's journey. Can you put a 1 in the chat? And Keith, I don't know if the chat is working or if people just aren't putting one. I love some interaction. So if you guys will put a 1 in the chat, if you feel like you can confidently say, yes, someone has disappeared in the middle of the buyer's journey, I'm certain. And I think we could all say that, to be honest. So I'll put a 1 in the chat for everybody. But it's the cost, the $250,000, whatever that number is the cost of inconsistency. And it's honestly not a lead generation problem. It's a visibility problem. And so in the awareness, if you look at kind of the very beginning of the buyer journey, some common drop-off points are things like your website is outdated with unclear messaging. You don't have search engine optimization, so Google doesn't even know you exist. You don't have a positioning strategy, and it looks like the chat is not working, so everyone's forgiven for not putting anything in the chat. You can just hold it up on your own. But in the awareness phase, you don't have a positioning strategy. You sound like everyone else. Those can be things in that stage. When you get to interest, and you can kind of jot down, just if you have a notepad or on your computer, if any of these things are things that you think that is a red flag, that's an area where we need help, start writing these things down. So, I mentioned for awareness, website messaging is unclear, no search engine optimization or Google Ads presence, you're invisible when they're searching for you, or you don't have a positioning strategy, so you sound like everybody else. That would be on the awareness side. Interest and research area would be, I don't have any content or a good lead magnet to engage buyer interest, like white papers, guides, calculators, things like that. I don't have industry specific messaging or examples for different verticals on my website. I don't have a retargeting strategy in place. That's in that interest and research. Consideration, you don't have any nurturing content. Once you've captured an email address, you don't have testimonials, case studies, video demos, side-by-side comparisons. You're not sending them any of that. Sales team might not be following up with context, or your emails might seem more cold pitch versus, hey, they already know we exist, type language. This is where a lot of times we lose control of the narrative, and your buyer starts to compare you to others, but you're not guiding their evaluation process, so you become insignificant along the buyer's journey. And then in the intent phase, this is for your sales teams. If you look at the graphic I showed earlier, you see that sales kind of starts to pick up some of the heavy lift from the intent forward, but you're, dropping off. The red flag might be, hey, my proposal doesn't stand out. It looks generic, or it's got lots of pricing on it and doesn't show testimonials or differentiation. I don't have any social proof, no customer videos, success stats, credibility assets that I'm sending them as they're preparing to make their decision. And then also there's no urgency or no clear reason to act now. So this is where buyers start to go dark. And if you have had buyers drop off, this would be where this is, probably a good chance where they are going dark, is you're not giving them any proof point or sense of urgency. And then moving toward the conversion, toward retention, your sales cycle drags along, your internal team is slow to follow up. You're using too much technical jargon potentially and it depends on the buyer, of course, but maybe in some of your demos you've talked over their head, or there's no reinforcement of long-term benefit or return on investment. That's where we're messing up in the conversion phase. And then retention, you don't have, they're not referring business to you because you don't have good onboarding. You've lost them once you started onboarding. No review system. No customer, no internal team member that's marketing to you or continuing to add value to you, no check-ins from sales, that type of thing. So you might have detected, I think chat works now, which is great. So since chat works now, let's see if any of these red flags that I just talked about, all the way from awareness to retention, can you type in flag in the chat if you feel like any of these flags you might could identify with or you've seen before? Perfect. Okay, great. Good. It's working. Great. So we all have things we can work on. No business is perfect, but there is a good chance that the reason that your buyers are dropping off along this journey is because of one of these red flags that I mentioned. There are plenty of other things we could talk about as well, but those are just some predominant ones. So today we're going to talk about omnipresence. This also could be called something like multi-channel. I like omnipresent because to me, it's just, again, a mindset shift. And I always like to say, when you are looking at your marketing and sales strategy from this type of view, you start to look at things from the standpoint of how can I serve my customer or prospect versus how can I sell to them. And if you are truly one of those that is selling to a customer in a sales cycle that's 6 to 18 months, which I believe that a lot of us on this call probably are, then that mindset shift is going to be what is a game changer for your business. This marketing strategy, omnipresent marketing strategy, is pretty much the core of today's session, a multi-channel, behavior-driven strategy that keeps your brand visible and trusted across every stage of the buyer journey. That's what this means. It's not rocket science, but we are going to talk about really why this works in this industry. And this might be unpopular opinion, but not all telecom buyers are all technical. Not all of them are. So you've got to build trust with your CFOs, oftentimes COOs, your IT leaders, all of these people, sometimes all at once. And so that's why this framework really works, because it keeps your brand in front of each stakeholder without exhausting your team. So it's built, like you can see on the slide here, it's built for longer sales cycles. It leverages technical authority without being overwhelming. It aligns sales and marketing to work together across the journey. And then it's really scalable with a lean team if you're focused on the right things. Having a marketing agency and having been internal for managed services provider doing marketing, I understand, I assure you how difficult it is to know what to focus on, especially when oftentimes you're putting out fires for your internal team members as you are marketing and you support both internal and sales and marketing a lot of times, communication. So I understand that it's difficult. This framework will help allow you to focus a little bit more. So we're going to talk about each of these 5 components of that omnipresent approach, starting with positioning. This is very important. If you don't have this, don't work on anything else. Start here and start to build your plan from here. This is huge because a lot of times when someone asks you, hey, how are you different from your competition? There might not be a whole lot to say. And so oftentimes what we like to, and I know this is probably going to maybe offend some people, but we like to say, well, our customer support is second to none. Well, you can't, it's hard to sell that. They have to experience that. You start building your brand with referrals who can tell other people those things. But when you are trying to encourage someone to buy from you, oftentimes that customer service pain point, it will win sometimes, but not every time. So we've got to come up with something else. So positioning is truly the foundation. I love the book Building a Story Brand. You've heard me talk about it time and time again if you've heard me present in any capacity. But this is your whole team, or at least those people that are customer facing, really understanding what problems you solve and how you're different. It has to be memorable. It has to be catchy. And you need to have all of these components that I've listed here. Make sure that it's all consistent. I think the worst thing we can do is have somebody, telling someone what you do, and then they go to your website and it says the complete opposite, right? So this is at the very foundation, the number one thing to get under wraps. And again, if you don't have this under wraps, start here. Don't worry about anything else until later. Second one, platforms. So positioning number 1, platforms number 2. This is really where your multi-channel game plan starts being laid out. So once we know who we are, we've got all of those assets that were listed under positioning dialed in, and we feel like we have we have effectively communicated our competitive advantage. Then we want to look into, okay, how are we going to get the word out? Not all of us have the budgets to do all of these things. There are some that are less expensive than others. So I would say decide what your budget is and then pick what you can afford to start. All of them can be effective, but you want to make sure that you're staying visible and staying in front as much as you can afford to do so. I personally believe it's the least flashy, but I think it is the absolute most important thing you can do for your business is make sure that your search engine optimization, your SEO foundation is laid, your website content is letting Google know what you do and that you are posting frequently, and adding content to your website. Because if Google doesn't know, first of all, if you don't know what you do, then Google certainly can't know. That's the number one quote. I feel like we should trademark that, Grace, if you're on the call. You can, if you don't know what you do, Google certainly won't know. But if Google doesn't know what you do, then your customer will not be able to find you. So we want to make sure that's handled. But then you can see here, this is how you will essentially stay visible throughout the journey. And then consistency. This is where especially lean marketing and sales teams struggle because, again, we are serving typically internal communications and we're doing the job externally as well. But if you can get a good process, you can batch this work and it will work. Process is really the number one thing that helps make this flow a little bit easier, but consistency, you can't just show up with a blog post or one white paper every 6 months. That's not moving the needle. That's not allowing your buyer to do the search online and find you, or Google to even understand what you do. So this is kind of what that consistency looks like. I'm gonna show you a graphic in a minute where you see it all played out. Credibility, this is where we get, it's a bit tricky because we don't necessarily like to ask our customers all the time to talk about us, but I guarantee that your customers talking about you is 10 times better than you talking about you. So if you are able to, especially if you serve different verticals very well, having each of those verticals represented with a video testimony or case study, this is an expensive investment. If you don't have the budget to go do video, then do a Zoom recording, transcribe that Zoom recording, get that, split up into multiple pieces of blog content, get a case study made. Video is immensely impactful if you're able to do it and make that investment. But we want to make sure that all of these things listed here are managed. Your website has those trust badges on it of logos of people that you either work with or customers, and that you do have proof that you have delivered for your clients, your existing clients. And then conversion. Sometimes we feel like we can get people to the very end of the buying cycle, and then why aren't they begging? Why aren't they begging to buy from us? Right? Why have they not called us and said they're ready to buy? Well, every warm buyer needs a nudge. We've got to, remember that they're not waking up every day thinking about us like we are about them. And so here's some, different areas that we could create urgency to really help get that conversion part in this omnipresence framework built up, is make sure that we have on hand. And this is where a lot of times we struggle because we think what we have is worth great value, and we don't necessarily think that they need, a discount or whatever. Maybe it's not a discount, but find something that doesn't cost you much that could, if you are neck and neck with your competitor, and this person is doing that last bit of research and they see an offer from you, that could be what seals the deal right there. So make sure that you've got these things that are listed on the slide here in place. You've got to create urgency to make it easy for them to say yes. A lot of times, especially in our industry, we're buying something that's complex and does take a little nudge to get them to that point. So here is what omnipresence in action looks like. You saw our unaware buyer and what they're going through and where we have red flags, but this is kind of what the journey would look like if we are equipping them properly along their buying journey. Okay, now Laura, how do we do this? Anybody want to know how we do it? Put a one in the chat if you want to know how to do it. How do we get here? How do we get to look like this? Does anybody want? All right, great. We got some ones. Good. Okay. the reason this was titled the trust to revenue marketing approach is because it really comes down to creating content that answers the questions that they are asking. I like to say that if you don't have a huge budget or you're trying to compete without outspending, and we all know that there are providers that you compete against that have much deeper pockets than you do, more than likely. Or maybe you are one of those, companies and you have competition that, for whatever reason is able to move the needle because you can't. You can compete without outspending if you outteach. Start by listing the top 20 questions your buyers are asking. And this is a great exercise for your internal team to do. Take, maybe whether it's your sales and marketing teams, your executive team, your whole team, if you're a small business, get together, spend 90 minutes together and list the top 20. Each of you, this is what my favorite part of this type of exercise, each of you list 20 questions on a piece of paper. And you can start doing this right now, excuse me. List top 20 questions that your buyers are asking. And this is not necessarily what you think they're asking. So if you don't know what they're asking, then you need to ask them. What did you Google to find us? Or, what kinds of questions are you asking along this buyer's journey? And then answer them better than anyone else in your space. This is what's going to position you as the expert long before a sales call happens. These questions become a content engine. When a buyer, Google's best VoIP company for medical practices, and you have a piece of content for medical practices, that's going to bubble up to the top because Google wants its users to find the most relevant piece of content, especially if it's local, right? Local to you. So, I just listed out some example questions. This is a great exercise to do. The book They Ask You Answer is the best book in terms of training your team to think about what these questions might be. The first thing to set the stage for being able to build and create these pieces of content to be along your buyer journey is to write the questions down. Then come together, and whichever questions overlap, those are the questions that you'll use to start creating your content. I said you don't need a bigger ad budget. You need a better answer to your buyer's questions. These are just 5, I think, really easy tactics. You could take one of these and take these questions, answer them, have your subject matter expert answer those 20 questions that you come up with, and then take those things, split them amongst your team, and have each member of your team, whatever that team looks like, write a piece of content do a 30-day sprint. Everyone has a question or up to 5 questions each, and their responsibility is in 30 days to write the answer to that question in a kind of blog type of content piece. Also, I love vertical libraries. If you're able to create content specific to that industry, take that same question that was answered and then write a piece of content specific to healthcare, because typically when someone's buying from you and they see that you have content written for them, that confirms in their mind that you are experienced in that particular industry. So if you do serve verticals, or you're, even if you don't have a vertical strategy, but you realize that this is a, approach that might work for you, tailor all of the same content, but write it for different verticals specifically. Make sure that you are working with your sales team to come up with every sales objection, because that is certainly something that you want to work into those top 20 questions, and you want to assign content pieces, or during this 30-day sprint, every objection, make sure that your sales team has written a piece of content to do that. And then use your team videos, team members on videos or blog posts or LinkedIn. Your team is your number one best opportunity to expand your reach without spending ad budget if you don't have ad budget. So making your people your brand is a great opportunity to give them content to distribute on their own and help them add their own context to it. Make your people your brand. And then use the content in sales. There's no reason why they just have to get this blog post on your website or from a marketing email. this could be a great resource if you are truly answering all of the questions that your buyer might have. Then when your sales team is on a sales call and two of those objections come up on the call, that gives them an opportunity to serve that prospect with two pieces of content you've created just for them, right? So it helps when you get to that latter part of the buyer's journey, it helps your sales team serve them as well. Grace is going to throw this link in the chat for you to click on. Oh, excuse me. It's just go.thebusinessgrowers.com/prompts. Actually give you the exact prompts to use to create content pieces from those 20 questions. I think that it would be of great value for you to take that, and you're not able to edit that particular document, just make a copy. And I've given you some tips on how to create that content that way. And this is just some samples. Thanks, Catherine. Catherine did it. These are just some samples for, okay, Laura, how do I get all this content out? You can do it however you want to do it, whatever you are equipped to do. But content only works if it gets seen, and we're not talking just blog content. So make sure you're taking this content. I have some tools if you guys are interested. We use Caption, Descript, Opus Clip, a couple of different tools to be able to take this content and distribute it other ways across different channels. But my tip is repurpose ruthlessly. Statistically, I think it's like 4% of your audience on LinkedIn or social channels even sees your content, maybe even less than that. But one idea or one question that's on your list of questions ideally should become 5 assets. That's kind of the idea here. And so that means that this person that we looked at earlier that was the buyer saw a LinkedIn post, then went to Google search and found your website, and your website resonated with them because they were first interested in your LinkedIn post. Then you were served because they went to your website, and if you have a tool like our website lead ID, you knew they were on your website, or you might they might have filled out a form, given you an email address because there was a compelling lead magnet on your homepage for them. So then you start serving them with emails, and then they see you at an in-person event like the Encompass show, and that's how you build buyer confidence. That's how someone starts to trust you, is that you have taken them and given them, remember, serve over selling, you've given them resources so that when they become that 3% that's ready to buy, they have seen you multiple times and feel confident in that purchase decision. So let's revisit this one more time. Our goal is, your goal really is not to overwhelm the marketing team. I understand that this can be overwhelming when you think about creating this much content, but you can batch it. And it's really, the idea is to get smart and strategic, show up where it matters with answers that build trust, and use systems to be able to scale that visibility. Use a process. We use ClickUp internally. We have ClickUp task templates where every time we have, a piece of content, there's this 10 things that need to happen to be able to get it out a bunch of different formats, that type of thing. So good systems will also help you there. And then here's just how to execute if you need tips on how to execute. But again, go back to that number one thing is just starting with your list. Record a client case study. You can do it on Zoom if that's your only option or that's what your budget allows. If you can go on site or have them come on site, even better. But that one client video could turn into a blog post, 3 LinkedIn posts, a testimonial video. You can pull a quote and put it in an email. Of course, do a social media graphic with the quote on there. Ads, you could serve ads with the quote on there to build confidence. You also could create a 60-minute, I like to call it my weekly visibility routine. You set an hour every week to post on LinkedIn, to approve that email copy or write the email copy, whatever it is. It depends on how big your team is. And then Friday, check your CRM and make sure that any of these people that have been warmed up are getting those testimonials. And then empower a team member or someone, whether it's a marketing agency that you work with, just to make sure that there's a system. Without systems, this will undoubtedly fail. So you need to have a system, an approach. Here's how we're going to do it. Every Monday, we're going to do this. Every Friday, we're going to do this. Whatever that looks like. And this is just a sample, but whatever your goals are and however you feel like your team is able to execute on this, get a system in place and keep each other accountable. to do so. And with that, my last slide just shows that full, nice looking bowl of popcorn that we, want to see our buyers, ready to buy. And we will start being able to follow them along the buyer's journey with the right tools and resources and the right CRM, and see, hey, this person is not that 3% yet, but they've already seen these 6 pieces of content. We might want to have somebody in sales call on them at this point. So it really, if you get the right systems in place, it really does help get you to where you want to be and stay visible and build that trust. I have a QR code here. If anybody, of course, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with any of you on the call today. And I have a QR code. If you have any questions or would like to talk further, you can simply scan the QR code here. And with that, I am happy to open up the floor if there are any questions. Keith, I don't know if you want to do anything from here or not, but that is the end of my presentation. I don't know if everyone can even talk, so if we're unmuted or not, but.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. I am not seeing any questions in the chat at this time. So what we can do, we can wrap, but if we do have any questions for Laura, please reach out to her.
Yeah.
You have her LinkedIn information, or feel free to reach out to Encompass, and then we can share the information to you all to reach out to Laura if you have any more questions that you would like to ask her post a webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith.
Excellent. Thank you so much for attending.